Good morning students. In the last period, our chapter number 6, combustion and flame was completed. Today I am going to start your chapter number 8, cell, structure and functions. In this chapter, you will learn about discovery of the cell, the organisms which shows variety in cell numbers, shape and size, parts of the cell, and at the last we will see comparison of plant cell and animal cell. Now see the chapter. You have already learned that things around us are either living or non-living. In the sixth grade, one chapter was there. In that chapter, we learn about the living things and non-living things, and from that chapter, we can understand that the things around us, which can be classified either living or non-living things. Further, you may recall that all living organisms carry out certain basic functions, and can you list of these functions? And many functions are there can performed by the living organisms. From that, some I will mention here: order, sensitivity, reproduction, growth and development, regulation and energy processing. These are the functions performed by the living organism. Now, different sets of organs perform various functions you have listed, and these functions which I mentioned here, like order, sensitivity, reproduction, these functions can be performed by the different set of organs. In this chapter, you shall learn about the basic structural unit of an organ. And in this chapter, we will learn about the basic structural unit of an organ, and which is called as a cell. Cell may be compared to bricks. Cells may be compared to brick, and these cells may be compared to the bricks. Bricks are assembled to make a building, and similarly, the cells are assembled to make the body of every organisms. In a in the same way that bricks we are using to make a building, it is a basic structural unit. It is a basic structural unit for the building. And in the same way that cells are used to assemble to make a body of every organism, that's why the cell is a basic structural unit of an organism. Now here, our first point, 8.1, discovery of the cell. Discovery of the cell. Now one question is arises: who discovered the cell? And answer is here: Robert Hooke in 1665 observed slice of cork under a simple magnifying device. Robert Hooke, a scientist, Robert Hooke in 1665 observed a slice of cork under a simple magnifying device. Cork is a part of the bark of a tree. Cork, झाडाची साल. He took thin slice of cork and observed them under a microscope. Then he take the thin slice of cork, thin slice of cork under, and observed them under a microscope, and he noticed partitioned boxes or compartments in the cork slice. And when he saw that the slice of cork and observed under the microscope, he noticed that some partitioned boxes, some separated boxes are there, and or the compartments are there in the cork slice. Here you can see in the figure 8.1, cork cell was observed by the Robert Hooke, and these boxes appeared like honeycomb. You are aware about the honeycomb, and when you see that picture, that you can aware about the honeycomb, and it is same as a honeycomb. It shows like the same as a honeycomb. Now next, he also noticed that one box was separated from other by a wall or partition. And when he saw that cell, that time he found that he also noticed that one box is separated from the other by a wall or partition. And Hooke coined the term cell for each box, and for each box he coined the term cell. And what Hooke observed as a boxes or cells in the cork were actually dead cells. Cells of living organisms could be observed only after the discovery of improved microscope. Now that time in 1665, that improved microscopes are there, but not improved microscopes are there. That much quality or not found in that microscope. Then the cells of living organisms could be observed only after the discovery of improved microscope. Now we are using that microscopes, where little was known about the cell for the next 150 years after Robert Hooke observation. Today we know that today we know a lot about cell structure and its function because of improved microscopes having high magnification. Uh, having my having high magnification. Today we are having a lot of information about the cell structure and its functions because of the improved microscope which is having high magnification. Now the next point, the cell. Now the most important part which is going on now, the cell. First point, 8.2, the cell. Both bricks in a building and cells in the living organisms are basic structural unit. Now both bricks in building and cells in a living organisms are basic structural unit. जसं एखादी बिल्डिंग बांधण्यासाठी जशी वीट महत्वाची असते, तसंच एखादं बॉडी ऑर्गॅनिझम, एखादा लिव्हिंग ऑर्गॅनिझम तयार होण्यासाठी सेल महत्वाचा असतो. द बिल्डिंग दो बिल्ट of similar bricks have different design, shape and size. We are aware about that. Similarly, in the living world, organisms differ from one another. We are aware about that. In the living organisms, human beings are there, animals are there, and they are different from one another. But all are made up of cells. But all the living organisms are made up of cells. And cells in the living organisms are complex living structure, unlike non-living bricks. And cells which is present in the living organisms are the complex living structures, unlike the non-living brick. Here one question was there: a hen's egg can be seen easily. It is a cell or a group of cell. Now here answer was given. The egg of a hen represent a single cell and is big enough to see by the unaided eye. The egg of a hen represent a single cell and it is a big enough to seen by the unaided eye. जे कोंबडीचं अंड आहे ते एक सिंगल सेल आहे, ते आपण उघड्या डोळ्यांनी पाहू शकतो, पण बाकीच्या सेल्स आहेत ते आपण उघड्या डोळ्यांनी पाहू नाही शकत. त्याच्यासाठी आपल्याला मायक्रोस्कोप यूज करावा लागतो. नाव हियर figure 8.2, brick wall and onion peel. Here you can see the brick wall. We are aware about that, but when you see in under the microscope onion peel, it shows like in the same way that like in a brick wall. Now here our next point, organisms show variety in cell number, shape and size. Many living organisms are there which shows the variety in cell number, variety in shape of the cell and variety in shape of the size of the cell, Now see, how do scientists observe and study the living cell? Living cells are so small they cannot seen by the open eyes. Then how the scientists they observed and study about the living cell? They use microscope which magnify object. ते काय करतात, मायक्रोस्कोप यूज करतात जे की एखादी छोटीशी वस्तू ती मोठी करून दाखवतं. They use microscope which magnify objects. Stains, which means dyes, are used to color the part of the cell to study the detailed structure. There are million of living organisms. कितीतरी लाखो living organisms आहेत. They are different shapes and size. They are having different shape and size. Their organs also vary in shape, size and number of the cells. Now see about the human being, a small child which are having a small leg or hand, but adult human being which is having that related with the child longer body parts. Here that's why here mentioned the organs. Their organs also vary in a shape, size and number of the cells. Let us study about some of them. Now the first point from this, number of the cell. Now we will see about the organisms which shows the variety in the cell number, and number of the cell. Now here, can you guess the number of the cell in a tall tree or in a huge animal like elephant? Huge animal like the elephant. Now can you guess the number of cells which is present in a tall tree or animal, a huge animal like elephant? The number of cells runs into billions and trillions. Billions and trillions. Now you understand how much amount of cells are present in our body or in living organism. Human body has trillion of the cells which vary in shapes and size. In the human body, trillions of the cells are present, and which is different in shapes and size. Different groups of the cells perform variety of function, and in our body different cells are there which is different in a shapes and size, and different group of cells, there are group of cells are there in our body which performs variety of functions, which performs different variety of the function. Now here, a billion which means 1,000 million, which is 1,000 million, and a trillion means 1,000 billion. From that you can understand that how much quantity was present, how much amount of cells are present in the human body. Now see next one, organisms made of more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. It is most important definitions are there, multicellular and unicellular. Hear it properly, carefully. Organisms made of more than one cell is called multicellular. जो ऑर्गॅनिझम आहे तो एकापेक्षा जास्त सेलने बनलेला आहे तो कोणता, मल्टीसेल्युलर ऑर्गॅनिझम. हियर मल्टी मीन्स मेनी, वी आर अवेअर अबाउट दॅट, अँड सेल्युलर मीन्स सेल. मल्टीसेल्युलर, many cells are present in that body. Organisms made up of more than one cell is called multicellular organism. The number of cells being less in a smaller organisms does not in any way affect the functioning of the organs. Now we will from that one question will be arises. Suppose number of cells are less in a smaller organism, but it does not affect on that the functioning of that organism. We can study about the small child and adult human being. There the number of cells are varies. The number of cells are varies in adult human being and small boy also, but it not be affect on the functioning of that particular adult human being and that small boy also. Here that is mentioned. The number of cells being less in a smaller organism does not in any way affect on the functioning of the organism. You will be surprised to know that an organism with billions of the cells begin life as a single cell, and which is fertilized egg. You can learn about the fertilized egg in chapter number 10 and 11. Now here you will be surprised, तुम्ही सरप्राइज व्हाल की जो ज्या आपल्या बॉडीमध्ये, सपोज वी विल कन्सिडर अबाउट अस, जो की एखादा मोठा ऑर्गॅनिझम आहे ज्याच्यामध्ये बिलियन ऑफ सेल्स असतात, ज्याच्यामध्ये बिलियन लाखो अब्जावधी सेल्स प्रेझेंट असतात, पण त्याची लाईफ कशापासून चालू होते, तर एका सिंगल सेल पासून चालू होते, विच इज कॉल्ड एज अन फर्टिलाइज्ड एग. The fertilized egg cell multiplies and the number of the cells increase as development proceeds, and that fertilized egg multiplies itself in the number of the cells, and then number of the cells increases and development proceeds. Now the next point, we will learn this concept in chapter number 10 and 11. Now look at the next point. Look at the figure 8.3 A and B. See the figure which you can see on the screen also. Look at the figure 8.3 A and B. Both organisms are made up of a single cell. The single celled organisms are called unicellular organisms. Here figure 8.3 A and B. Figure 8.3 A which is shown amoeba, and figure 8.3b shows paramecium. and these are the single cell organisms. These are the single cell organisms which is having only single cell. Single cell. These organisms are made up of single cell. A single cell organism perform all the necessary function that multicellular organisms perform. Now, one question will be arises, how they can perform their activities, how they can perform their certain functions, necessary functions. But a single celled organism perform all the necessary functions like a multicellular organisms perform, in a such a way that we are performing our activities, we are doing our necessary functions like growth, development, reproduction. In the same way that also a single cell organism, they are performing their necessary function like in a multicellular organism. A single celled organisms like amoeba capture and digest food, respire, excrete, grows and reproduces. Similar functions in multicellular organisms are carried out by groups of specialized cells forming different tissues, and tissues in turns form of organs. A single cell organisms like amoeba capture and digest food, respire, excrete, grows and reproduce. In suppose we will consider about us, we can capture our food, we can take our food, we can digest it, and we can respire, we can excrete, we can grow, and we can reproduce ourselves. But here the single cell organisms like amoeba, it can also do all these activity with a single cell. With a single cell, it can capture the food and digest the food. It can also respire, excrete and grows and reproduces. And that similar functions in a multicellular organisms like us, it is carried out by the group of specialized cells. Suppose in a human being, for the capture and digest foods, different cells are there. For respire, different cells are there. For excretion, different cells are there. And growth and reproduction, for that different specialized cells are there. And these specialized cells forming a different tissues, and that group of cells which forms a tissue, and that group of tissues which forms an organ. Now here activity 8.1 was mentioned there, and that we will perform when school will be reopened. That activity, it is related about the amoeba and paramecium. We will see under the microscope. Today up to this we covered, remaining part we will see in the next period.